When you click on a MrBeast video titled something like "I built 100 wells in Africa," or "We saved an entire town from starvation," you're not just opening a random YouTube upload. You're stepping into the center of a strange new arena where generosity, entertainment, and algorithmic pressure collide in real time, right in front of your eyes. On one side of this arena stands Jimmy Donaldson, the person behind the MrBeast brand, a creator who has built his identity on extreme generosity, giving away houses, cars, stacks of cash, paying for surgeries, funding food banks, building schools, cleaning oceans, and now even trying to tackle problems like access to clean water at scale. On the other side stands the YouTube algorithm, a faceless digital gatekeeper that does not care about kindness, morality, or social responsibility. It cares about watch time, click-through rate, audience retention, and whether you, the viewer, hover over a thumbnail for a fraction of a second more than you did over another one. Between them, in the middle of this chaotic, buzzing battlefield, stands you, the viewer, holding a simple but uncomfortable question. Is this charity, or is this highly engineered clickbait rap? In the language of kindness, that question is what this topic is really about. MrBeast vs. the algorithm, and whether what we're witnessing is a new era of digital philanthropy, or just the most emotionally charged version of content creation the internet has ever seen. Because when you watch a video where people see for the first time after surgery, or a village celebrates the arrival of clean drinking water, you may feel deeply moved, maybe even inspired to donate or share the video. But at the very same moment, tucked behind that emotional connection, there's a thumbnail designed to be irresistible, a title crafted to trigger curiosity and urgency, a sponsor integration that funds the whole production, and a recommendation system that pushes that video to millions because people like you didn't just watch it, they rewatched parts, commented, and stayed until the very end. The uncomfortable reality is that on YouTube, good intentions alone don't get pushed. The algorithm demands a show. So MrBeast has turned kindness into a show, a spectacle, a format. He builds narratives around money, around shock value, around extremes. Not "we donated some food," but "we fed an entire city for a day." And not "we built one well," but "we built 100 wells." And not "we helped one person see," but "we helped 1,000 people see." He inflates the numbers, the stakes, the scale, not necessarily because he's faking impact, but because big numbers translate into big attention, and big attention translates into big revenue, and big revenue makes the next big charitable idea possible. So is that charity, or is that clickbait? The truth is that in the algorithmic world, those two things are no longer opposites. They're welded together. Charity becomes the subject of the clickbait. Emotional stories become thumbnails. Human suffering becomes the before shot. Life-changing moments become the after shot freeze, framed with a red circle and an arrow. Some people praise this combination and say, who cares if it's flashy? People are getting real help. Wells are built, surgeries are paid for, forests are planted, oceans are cleaned. If the price of helping thousands is a dramatic thumbnail, then that's a small price to pay. From this perspective, MrBeast is a genius who has figured out how to hack a system obsessed with entertainment and redirect all that attention into funding large-scale acts of good. But others raise serious concerns and ask, is it healthy that solving global problems now seems to depend on whether one creator can make it entertaining enough for us to click? Are we okay with a world where the narrative of poverty, disability, or crisis is curated to fit a 10-minute video arc? They worry that people in vulnerable situations are turned into characters in a content machine, that their stories are edited, sped up, dramatized, and packaged in a way that's more about maximizing watch time than honoring their full dignity. Even the word giveaway which used to mean a fun little prize for fans, has turned into a genre where people are sometimes shown scrambling, lining up, competing, or reacting with extreme emotion, because those are the moments the algorithm loves. At the same time, we as an audience are not innocent in this story. The algorithm only optimizes for what we watch, rewatch, and share. It's not a moral judge, it's a mirror. The reason MrBeast-style philanthropy thrives is because we click on it, we stay for it, we talk about it. Quiet, low-key charity doesn't go viral. A simple video titled "We donated to a local charity" will never stand a chance against "Last to leave the circle wins $500,000,000,000." Or "I gave a homeless person a home." So if we expect creators to survive, to fund bigger and bigger projects, and to satisfy an audience that is increasingly used to high-intensity content, we shouldn't be surprised when kindness itself is turned into a high-intensity product. That doesn't automatically make the kindness fake, but it does change the way kindness is presented, timed, and framed. And that's the tension at the heart of MrBeast vs. the algorithm, charity, or clickbait. It's not as simple as saying, he's just doing it for views. Because without the views, there is no funding for the scale of impact he's aiming for. But it's also not as simple as saying it's pure altruism, because there is clearly a brand being built, a business being scaled, and a system in which doing good and doing numbers are tightly intertwined. As we dig into this topic, I want you to hold a paradox in your mind. On one hand, we're looking at a creator who has undeniably helped real people in tangible ways. On the other, we're looking at a system that rewards the dramatization of those people's struggles and emotions. The big question is not just, is MrBeast a hero or a clickbait merchant? The deeper question is, what happens to our idea of generosity when it must fight for survival on a platform that only amplifies what can captivate us the fastest? When helping people becomes content, are we evolving charity into something bigger and more powerful? Or are we quietly letting the algorithm reshape our moral compass without even noticing? To really understand this clash between MrBeast and the algorithm, we need to look more closely at the mechanics of how his content works and why it has exploded in a way more traditional charity never could. In the old model of philanthropy, most of the action happened behind closed doors. Donors wrote checks, organizations hosted quiet galas, reports came out once a year, and only a small circle of engaged supporters ever really saw the details. It was noble, yes, but it was also invisible. The internet, and YouTube in particular, rewards the opposite of invisibility. It rewards drama, visibility, momentum, and stories that feel like events rather than footnotes. MrBeast steps into that space and says, what if giving didn't have to be invisible? What if we turned it into something so big, so bold, so over the top that people couldn't help but watch? Suddenly, a food bank isn't just a warehouse quietly handing out groceries. It becomes a scene where thousands of people line up and receive enough boxes to fill their entire car, while cameras capture the relief, the tears, the laughter, and the sense of community. A fundraising campaign isn't just a link in a newsletter. It's a challenge video where millions of viewers see a gigantic number ticking upwards on the screen in real time as donations pour in. The algorithm looks at all this not as charity, because it doesn't know that word, but as content that triggers strong emotions and keeps people engaged, and it says, yes, more of this. So MrBeast learns, video by video, what works: fast pacing, high stakes, huge numbers, clear visuals, simple emotional arcs, and the satisfying release of seeing someone's life change in an instant. You can almost imagine a feedback loop. The more extreme the generosity, the more the audience reacts. The more the audience reacts, the more the algorithm promotes. The more the algorithm promotes, The more sponsors are willing to pay, the more sponsors pay, the more money there is to give away. It becomes a self-reinforcing cycle of do something huge, show it in a compelling way, and use the attention to fund the next huge thing. This is where supporters argue that calling it just clickbait is unfair, because clickbait usually implies deception, a promise that isn't fulfilled. In MrBeast's case, the promise is often exactly what it says on the thumbnail. I gave a stranger $500,000, and then you see someone actually receive that money. We built 100 wells, and then you see those wells. There is a kind of radical transparency in that format. You are not reading a vague press release about funds being allocated to some distant cause. You are watching a specific person get a specific benefit in full color, with their reaction right there on screen. For many viewers, especially young ones who are skeptical of abstract institutions, this feels more trustworthy than a traditional charity report. They see the impact directly, and that visibility builds a sense of connection. My view, my like, my share is part of what made this moment possible. The algorithm, strangely enough, becomes a partner in that mission. It takes that sense of connection, amplifies it, and brings more people into the loop, more eyes to the cause, more dollars into the pool. From this angle, the fusion of charity and click-driven content isn't a compromise, it's a breakthrough in attention economics. Instead of fighting the algorithm, MrBeast rides it, harnesses it, and points its enormous amplification power at problems that usually struggle to get attention. Think about how hard it is to get people to care about issues like global hunger, access to clean water, or medical debt, when those issues are presented in dry statistics and somber reports. Now compare that to a thumbnail showing a person in obvious need on the left, and the same person transformed on the right, with the title promising some staggeringly large act of help. One approach asks for your rational concern, the other invites your emotional curiosity, and like it or not, emotional curiosity tends to win in a feed full of distractions. In that sense, MrBeast is speaking the language of the internet better than almost anyone alive. He understands that if you want to move people to care and act at scale online, you must first move them to click and watch. The hierarchy of impact on YouTube goes something like this: no click, no view, no ad revenue, no budget, no massive project. So what looks from the outside like a tension between charity and clickbait is, from inside the creator's world, more like a necessary sequence. First I capture your attention, then I convert that attention into resources, and then I convert those resources into real world help. The order may disturb some people, but it's shaped by the reality of how platforms work. And in fairness, the results are not imaginary. We see schools refurbished, food banks supplied, surgeries paid for, environmental projects supported. Whether you personally appreciate his storytelling style or not, the awe on someone's face when they receive a house, or wake up able to see, or drink clean water near a brand new well is difficult to dismiss as just content. For the people involved, those are faltering moments, not thumbnails. And if those faltering moments only exist at that scale because millions of strangers chose to click and watch, then the algorithm, strangely, has been turned into a tool for redistributing resources. Of course, this doesn't mean everything is perfect or that there are no valid concerns, but it does mean we have to acknowledge the positive disruption happening here. MrBeast has made charity aspirational and exciting to a generation that grew up more familiar with influencers than with international NGO. Kids don't just talk about being rich anymore. Some of them talk about being like MrBeast, about using money to surprise people, to help, to give, to create big moments of joy. That shift in imagination matters. It suggests that generosity can be branded not as something quiet and distant, but as something fun, dynamic, and central to how you show up online. In a world where so much content models selfishness, clout, chasing, and drama for the sake of drama, it is not trivial that one of the platform's biggest stars is modeling, at least on the surface, a kind of radical generosity. He is telling young people, if you get a lot, you can also give a lot. And he is demonstrating the mechanics of how that can be done in partnership with an algorithm that most people only see as a source of distraction. That doesn't magically erase the ethical questions, but it does complicate the narrative. We're not just dealing with a cynical manipulator exploiting people for views. We're dealing with a creator who is trying to build a sustainable engine of giving in an environment where attention and money are tightly linked. To ignore that complexity is to oversimplify both him and the very real good that has come from his videos. It also misses a deeper opportunity for us, as viewers and as a society, to study what he's doing and ask, how can we take the parts that are working, the transparency, the scale, the engagement, the storytelling, and use them beyond one channel, beyond one creator. Maybe governments, NGOs, and local communities can learn something about how to communicate impact in ways that feel vivid rather than abstract. Maybe other creators can see that giving isn't just a one-off stunt, but can be baked into the very core of a channel's identity. In that sense, the verses in MrBeast vs. the algorithm might be slightly misleading. On his best days, he's not fighting the algorithm. He's collaborating with it, bending its hunger for engagement toward projects that leave people better off than they were before. The real question is not only whether his approach counts as charity or clickbait, but whether this hybrid model might be a preview of how large-scale giving will increasingly work in a world governed by feeds, platforms, and metrics. Yet for all the praise, inspiration, scale, and emotional power packed into every MrBeast video, there is a darker underside to this algorithm-driven philanthropy, one that makes critics uneasy and sparks debates about ethics, dignity, and exploitation. To understand this side, we have to shift our focus away from the spectacle and begin examining the structural implications of turning charity into content. Because when generosity becomes a performance, one designed to maximize retention and trigger massive engagement, questions start to emerge about who really benefits, who holds the power, and how the stories of vulnerable people are shaped to fit the demands of the platform. One concern that often surfaces is the issue of consent and portrayal. While participants in MrBeast videos often sign forms and appear joyful on screen, the process behind those reactions isn't always visible. People in desperate circumstances may feel compelled to accept being filmed because it's tied to receiving life-changing assistance, which introduces an ethical imbalance. When someone needs a home, a surgery, or clean water, the power dynamic becomes extremely uneven. The creator holds the resources, the platform holds the amplification, and the participant must navigate a complex emotional landscape where receiving help is inseparable from becoming content. Even if they are grateful, that gratitude doesn't automatically erase the tension. Some critics argue that no matter how positive the outcome, it remains troubling that personal struggles, poverty, illness, disability, must be packaged into a highly polished narrative optimized for retention graphs and mid-roll ads. Beneath the surface-level thrill of massive giveaways lies the uncomfortable truth that human suffering becomes part of the entertainment engine. The thumbnail must show transformation. The edit must show emotional impact. The pacing must deliver highs and lows that keep viewers hooked. As a result, stories are often simplified into neat arcs. A before of hardship and after of joy. and a creator who serves as the catalyst. Real life, of course, is not that simple. Poverty isn't solved in 10 minutes. Disability doesn't disappear with one surgery. Communities don't become stable from a single well. But the platform incentivizes narratives where problems are introduced, addressed, and seemingly resolved within one upload. This raises concerns about whether the content unintentionally trivializes the depth and complexity of human struggles, even while providing real help. Another ethical issue surrounds the sustainability of such philanthropy. Because MrBeast's giving is tied to his revenue, and his revenue is tied to viewership, his model depends on constant growth. The next video must outdo the last. The next project must be bigger, more dramatic, more surprising. If the views slow down, the funds slow down. If the algorithm shifts, the entire machine can lose momentum. Critics worry that tying essential humanitarian work to the fickle preferences of a content platform is inherently unstable. Imagine if access to clean water or medical care in certain regions becomes dependent on whether a video performs well or hits trending. That dependency introduces risk. If something doesn't perform, does that mean fewer wells get built? Fewer surgeries are funded. Fewer resources reach those who need them. Traditional charities may lack flashiness, but they also tend to have structured funding streams, long-term strategies, and accountability frameworks that aren't subject to the whims of a recommendation algorithm. The idea that millions of dollars of aid could be indirectly controlled by audience engagement patterns raises valid concerns about long-term reliability. There's also the issue of scale vs. spotlight. MrBeast videos shine a bright spotlight on specific individuals at specific moments. But some critics argue that this kind of individualized storytelling, while emotionally effective, can distract from systemic issues. For instance, giving one person a house doesn't address housing policy. Paying for 1,000 surgeries doesn't fix health care infrastructure. Donating food doesn't solve the root causes of food insecurity. These actions relieve symptoms rather than transform systems. The problem is that systemic fixes rarely make for exciting thumbnails. No one is clicking on a video titled, "We helped lobby for healthcare reform," or "We spent 8 months working on local government budget revisions." The algorithm doesn't reward slow, complex, behind-the-scenes change. It rewards dramatic, visible, instant transformations. So creators who want to make large-scale impact often feel boxed into the kinds of interventions that look good on camera. This doesn't invalidate the good being done, but it does raise an important question. Does the platform environment subtly push philanthropists toward spectacle-based solutions instead of systemic ones? And if so, what does that mean for communities whose deeper needs may not be as camera-friendly? Another angle of critique focuses on the branding and monetization aspects of MrBeast's philanthropy. Even when the help provided is genuine, the videos function as a massive marketing tool for the creators' businesses, chocolate bars, snacks, merchandise, and affiliations with various sponsors. Some critics view this as a form of moral leverage, using charitable acts as a gateway to drive consumer behavior. The emotional goodwill generated by helping people can translate into higher brand loyalty, more product sales, and ultimately more profit. Again, this doesn't automatically negate the charitable work, but it complicates it. When giving is intertwined with brand building, it can become difficult to untangle what is primarily altruistic and what is primarily strategic. Furthermore, there's the concern of dependency on the hero narrative. In MrBeast videos, the creator is often positioned as the central figure, the giver, the solver, the orchestrator of positive change. While this is understandable from a storytelling standpoint, it can unintentionally reinforce a savior dynamic, especially when helping communities in the global South. Some viewers and critics argue that showcasing individuals from developing regions primarily through the lens of need, and positioning a Western influencer as the one who swoops in to provide solutions can perpetuate simplistic narratives about aid and reinforce problematic power structures. Even if the help is real, the framing may contribute to a broader pattern in media where certain groups are consistently portrayed as recipients of benevolence rather than agents of change within their own communities. Finally, we must address the emotional conditioning that occurs in audiences. When viewers become accustomed to seeing charity delivered in dramatic, extravagant ways, their expectations shift. Quiet, everyday acts of kindness may start to feel dull or insignificant. A donation of $50 doesn't feel meaningful compared to giving away $500,000 in a video. This can warp public perception of what philanthropy looks like and make ordinary generosity seem less valuable, even though, collectively, small acts of giving are far more transformative on a societal scale than isolated grand gestures. In the long term, this shift in perception could harm traditional charities, local organizations, and grassroots efforts that rely on modest, consistent donations rather than massive bursts of attention. In this sense, MrBeast's content may inadvertently raise the bar so high that regular people feel their contributions don't matter unless they can match the extremes they see online. All of these concerns don't erase the good MrBeast has done. Instead, they highlight the ethical complexities of merging charity with algorithm-driven entertainment, the tension between impact and optics, between genuine help and simplified narratives, between empowerment and dependency, between sustainability and spectacle. These are the issues that fuel the VS. In MrBeast vs. the algorithm, and if we want an honest understanding of this phenomenon, we must grapple with the fact that the very same engine that delivers wells, surgeries, houses, and food at record speed is also an engine that demands spectacle, simplifies suffering, and rewards emotional manipulation. The question is not whether MrBeast is good or bad. It's whether any model of charity built on the foundations of platform economics can ever be entirely free of these contradictions. As we reach the final stretch of this discussion, the heart of the conflict, MrBeast vs. the algorithm, charity or clickbait, expands into something larger than any one creator, any single platform, or any specific criticism. It becomes a mirror reflecting our entire digital culture, exposing how our expectations, behaviors, and emotional impulses shape the way generosity is expressed in an online world. Because the truth is this: MrBeast didn't invent algorithmic philanthropy. He perfected it. He didn't create the attention economy. He mastered it. And he didn't redefine charity alone. He did it with us, the viewers, whose clicks, comments, binge watching, and emotional reactions fuel the machine just as much as the cameras and budgets do. This final perspective forces us to re-examine not just the ethics of one YouTuber, but the digital infrastructure that surrounds all of us. When we ask, is this charity or clickbait, we are really asking, how has the internet reshaped what it means to care? The answer is complicated because caring online no longer means simply feeling empathy. It means engaging. It means clicking. It means watching long enough to signal to the algorithm that a piece of content deserves to be amplified. In this environment, attention becomes currency, and currency becomes impact. MrBeast is simply the most visible proof of a much deeper truth. In the digital era, compassion and consumption have merged in ways that would have been unthinkable even 20 years ago. And whether we applaud him or critique him, We cannot deny that he has built a model of philanthropy rooted in the realities of the modern internet, realities we all participate in. But the real question, the one that lingers long after the videos end, is what this model means for the future of giving. One possibility is that MrBeast represents a new kind of philanthropy, one that is transparent, participatory, and emotionally resonant. A kind where millions of people can contribute simply by viewing, where impact is visible and immediate, where storytelling bridges the emotional distance that often separates donors from the people they help. It's a model that excites a younger generation, teaching them that giving can be energetic, creative, and joyful rather than dull, impersonal, or bureaucratic. In this optimistic interpretation, MrBeast is the spark that forces traditional charities, governments, and global institutions to communicate more clearly, more vividly, and more inspiringly. Instead of hiding their positive work behind walls of technical jargon and annual reports, they might learn to show impact directly, to share stories that feel human, to celebrate the people they help rather than burying them in spreadsheets. They might even learn to use the same digital tools: short, form video, narrative arcs, transparent progress updates, to build trust and inspire participation the way he has. If this is the future, then MrBeast becomes less of an outlier and more of a pioneer. But the other possibility is far more troubling, one where algorithm-driven philanthropy slowly distorts the public's understanding of what it means to help others. In this darker scenario, charity becomes inseparable from entertainment. People grow accustomed to seeing giving only in spectacular formats: giant checks, surprise reveals, extreme transformation stories, and begin to lose interest in the quieter, less glamorous forms of support that actually sustain communities long term. We risk creating a world where suffering must be packaged for digital consumption before it receives attention. A world where a crisis isn't seen unless it can be framed in a thumbnail. A world where the algorithm, not human need, decides which causes rise and which remain invisible. This scenario leaves behind countless people and communities whose stories don't fit a neat 10-minute structure, whose struggles aren't visually dramatic, or whose needs require systemic change rather than sensational gestures. In such a world, empathy becomes selective, determined not by moral obligation, but by entertainment value. That's not MrBeast's fault alone. It's the fault of an ecosystem that feeds on virality. Yet he becomes the most visible symbol of this dynamic, not because he created it, but because he embodies it at scale. Whether we like it or not, the rise of algorithmic philanthropy forces us to reflect on our own digital habits. Why do dramatic acts of giving captivate us more than the small, mundane efforts that sustain real progress? Why are we more likely to watch a stranger gain $100 than to quietly donate $10 ourselves? Why do we respond to spectacle over substance? These questions reveal a deeper truth. The battle between charity and clickbait isn't happening on MrBeast's channel. It's happening inside each of us, shaped by the platforms we use every day. And in that sense, MrBeast isn't the problem or the solution. He's a symptom of a culture that wants goodness but demands entertainment. Yet somewhere in the middle of all this complexity, there is a strange and hopeful possibility that even if the algorithm is flawed, even if the platform environment encourages spectacle, even if the line between altruism and branding is blurry, the end result, people being helped, still matters. Maybe imperfect charity is better than no charity. Maybe using entertainment to drive real-world impact is not inherently manipulative, but simply adaptive. Maybe the blending of emotion, narrative, and digital amplification is the only way to mobilize large-scale compassion in a world saturated with content. At the same time, we must remain cautious. Because if we allow platforms to become the primary gatekeepers of generosity, we may lose the deeper meaning of giving: responsibility, humility, community, and solidarity. Charity must not become a genre that competes with gaming, drama, and comedy for screen time. Nor should people in vulnerable positions become props in a digital economy that prioritizes attention over dignity. The challenge going forward will be creating a world where digital storytelling enhances charity rather than distorting it, where creators can inspire generosity without turning suffering into spectacle, where viewers can engage without being conditioned to expect fireworks every time they consider giving. And maybe the answer isn't to reject MrBeast's model or to worship it, but to learn from it, and then evolve beyond it. Imagine a future where creators collaborate with local organizations, not just to deliver dramatic one-time interventions, but to build long-term change, where the storytelling includes not just the moment of receiving help, but the months of follow-up, the community voices, the structural solutions, where the algorithm amplifies not just the shocking transformation, but the honest, complex journey. In that future, MrBeast's approach becomes the beginning of a larger movement, not the end of it. And ultimately, the question, charity or clickbait, becomes less about assigning labels and more about imagining possibilities. Because the truth is, we live in a world where attention is power. And if attention can build wells, fund surgeries, feed families, and inspire millions to think differently about generosity, then perhaps the real challenge is not to fight the algorithm, but to teach it to serve a broader, deeper vision of human compassion. MrBeast may be the spark, but the fire, what we choose to do with this model, how we choose to care, and how we choose to shape the future of giving, belongs to all of us.